So as we say every week, we do not represent any specific 12-step fellowship. Please do not mention any specific 12-step fellowships. We are just here to study this book, discuss our experiences with it, and, just like have a good time. It's all opinions. We don't fucking know everything. And please remember that this does go on YouTube for anyone who needs like a big book study. Everyone has access to it. So if you do not want your name to be known, please do not say it. If you do not want your face to be shown, please do not walk directly behind me. And if you do, just give me a second to shut up so I can edit it out. Great. What page are we on?
14.
Are we on 14?
Mm-hmm.
Dang. Oh yeah, because we said Father of Light presides over us all. I'm nervous, I don't know why. Okay, simple but not easy, a price had to be paid. It meant destruction of self-centeredness. I must turn in all things to the Father of Light who presides over us all. We ended with me talking about last week, like my gratitude as someone who came in a stark raving atheist, completely closed-minded to all religious things. I could not, would not, right? If you talked about God, I completely shut down. And I'm grateful that I didn't have like a religious upbringing with that piece in, because I was able to read that and be like, that sounds beautiful. It's fucking poetry. I had no idea that's biblical at all. And my mind did not snap shut to the words being used. You know what I mean? These were revolutionary and drastic proposals, but the moment I fully accepted them, the effect was electric. There was a sense of victory, followed by such a peace and serenity as I had never known. There was utter confidence. I felt lifted up as though the great, clean wind of a mountaintop blew through and through. God comes to most men gradually, but his impact on me was sudden and profound. Again, I just love the fact that, again, like Bill is a writer, and you know that Bill is a writer, and it's so fucking dramatic, and I appreciate it so much, and I can absolutely relate to that. And I also want to know that he does say in here that God comes to most men, people, whatever, gradually, but his impact on me was sudden and profound. So the idea that you have to have this huge burning bush experience and that you have to have that in order to stay sober and get sober is just absolutely erroneous. It's not, for most people, it just doesn't happen that way, right? And if I place that expectation on God, on the universe, on my higher power to just burst through me like the wind and fucking melt the icy mountains of intellect right before my eyes, like, just smash that delusion, right? Because the truth is I did have those burning bush experiences.
So you have
right?
spiritual awakening like Bill's?
100%. I felt like electricity go through me. I mean, on my knees, hysterical crying. I was in treatment, right? I go to every RA and I'm like, you have to hear this story, right? And they're like, wow, that's great. And guess what? I got high. You know what I mean? Because the truth is like a spiritual experience like that. So I will say, I didn't have a spiritual awakening like he's talking about. I had a spiritual experience that he's talking about. The awakening never actually came, right? I had all of these really profound experiences that I didn't do anything with. And instead of feeling like I was humbled by them, I allowed it to build my ego, right? I'm like, I'm God's favorite. I don't have to be completely honest all of the time. That's for you peasants who God doesn't love as much. You know what I mean? Like, actually super fucking delusional, and that spiritual hilltop and that land of spiritual make-believe that it talks about later on in the book, right? So this time getting sober, wildly different experience, right? It talks about being of the educational variety for a spiritual awakening, where it comes very gradually, very slowly, and honestly kind of feels like torture sometimes. That was my experience this time, and now we're coming up on 7 years. All those times I had those burning bushes, I never could get that amount of time. 2 years was tops, right? Does anyone else like relate to what he's talking about here, or have felt anything like that?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Throughout my active use, not necessarily like substance related, that I contributed to that, but like I see those moments as like, because I mean I was so close to completely giving up hope and completely giving up on my life, and then like God would swoop in and like give me that. But I mean, of course, not much change followed, if any. And I definitely related to what you're talking about having a ton of very visceral, body-based, sensory, spiritual experiences, but then just kind of coasting on that. And then like, you know, it took me as far as it would take me, but it needs consistent action behind that, because that's what I think like my God wants from me.
100%.
Anyways, I don't know if that makes sense.
I think it makes sense, and I love that, because it's like, I feel like before I got sober, I had like a very dark time. So when I got here, I was like so grateful for everything and like super pink cloud, right? And then like, you know, things just start, you know, coasting, and it's like that state of neutrality. It's like you either like feel stagnant or you feel a sense of peace, you know, I've realized. And it's like continuing to take that action is what gives me that sense of peace. So like things don't come as immediate now. It's not that instant gratification, but it's like now, and when I have a bad day, it's like I know what a difference a day makes and what a difference the action makes, right? And it's like I'm not going to try to escape reality because I have a bad moment or a bad day or bad weeks or sometimes even bad months. It's like you move through it and you pray and you take the action, you know, and that's what gets you through it. And that is what has helped me build trust in God. You know.
Do you think some people are more open to it? I don't mean like their mind being open to it, because like you weren't, but you had. Well, by your own admission, you know. Like you had this big experience.
100%.
And like my mind was open to it, but I don't know. I don't know what I'm talking about, like inside you, that you're more, you know how people can pick up on things more than others. Like I was definitely slow and steady kind of thing. Like I didn't, like nothing, I did breath work and treatment and nothing happened.
Yeah.
I mean, they, like through the whole thing, the person next to me is like levitating all the I'm not kidding you, like serious, major experience. And I remember like toward the end, like someone came up and whispered in my ear, like, where are you? And I was like, I'm on a mattress at SCU. What was it called?
CSB, Clinical Service Building.
Like, no, I mean, nothing happened.
Right.
And I went in expecting like something major, because people who had gone before me, I was like, oh, I had a conversation with God. I was like, really?
Yes. What's he like?
And like nothing happened to me.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing, right? Is that I understand the question, and I question it all the time. Like, why do some people get it and some people don't? Or why do some people have these like huge experiences and others have these gradual ones? And I think that those are the questions that we're never going to have answered. And I think that what Jerry said, one of those words, is the most important, right? Is like this experience of trusting God, right? Because even though like breath work and like all the super hippy dippy spiritual shit, like I love that shit, like give it to me, let's go fucking howl at the moon in the woods at night and have a fire, and you know, and you're just like, yeah, man, I'm here for it, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
but
like
I'm watching
it, or just like people who like pick up on like spirits. I'm just like, somehow something in me is closed off.
Well, and I think that
like, I
that's
don't
just
know
like
Loretta, you know what I mean? Like
I know Loretta.
I know, but I'm just saying
Loretta.
like things like that other people pick up on.
Well, and I think that has to do with just like diversity of personality, which is the human experience, right? And that's why I think it's important that no matter what our experience, like we can all build that trust in a higher power, in the universe, in the spirit of energy, or whatever the fuck we call it. And being able to have so many different kinds of experiences is what makes this whole thing so cool. And it's also what literally makes it not a cult, right? Because we all like have our own belief system and we're like doing it. We have a guidebook, and we have one very specific way to go through the steps, right? When we're taking this specific pathway. I'm not saying the other pathways don't work. It's just not my gig, and I don't talk about it, right? So this specific pathway, it's very specific. There's a lot of things I must do, and then I have a lot of different experiences around it. Or a lot of people have different experiences around it. That's why, like, some people, for me, step 3, that's where I had electric. I mean, I'm sitting outside by the dock, right, and I am just crying. I looked up at a star and I felt the star come down and touch me. It was the weirdest fucking thing. I sound like a nut. I know that. I'm clear on that. And some people are like, no, yeah, I've had that. And other people are like, what the fuck is wrong with you? You know what I mean? And being able to have these different ways that, like, some people will be able to hear me, right? And some people cannot fucking hear me. I'm way just like too animated, too like hippy dippy, and then they hear you talk and they're like, you make sense to me. You're a reasonable, rational human. And now you get to take those on, and the other ones just are like, Nikki Maloney's fucking nuts. You know what I mean? And that's just how I think we get to be utilized, right? We have these very unique experiences with addiction, with alcoholism, and with recovery. You know what I mean? You want anything else on that? The other thing I'm going to focus on is those 2 words. These are revolutionary and drastic proposals, right? Because I need my life to be completely revolutionized. I need change, and I need it to be drastic. The proposals are drastic because the change I need to have is drastic. My life was in the fucking gutter. My self-worth, my internal condition was complete and utter wreckage, and I need something on the complete opposite side, whether that just be rationality and being able to, like, start to trust other humans and do things in just like a normal fucking way, or being like rocketed into the 4th dimension. You know what I mean? Like, the 4th dimension is just truth. It's just life how it actually is, and being able to perceive it that way and not in my own selfish perception, right? So however I get there, it doesn't matter, right? For a moment I was alarmed and called my friend the doctor to ask if I were still sane. He listened in wonder as I talked. Finally he shook his head, saying, something has happened to you and I don't understand, but you had better hang on to it. Anything is better than the way you were. The good doctor now sees many men who have such experiences. He knows that they are real. A lot of times we sit in the rooms and we hear people say, like, that part of the promises is that they got their family back, you know? So I always think it's important for me to be like, part of the promises for me was I put distance between my family, right? And because a lot of times we're sitting there and they're like, oh God, I'm doing something wrong, or I'm never going to have that, so I'm not going to be okay. And I just want to be clear that that's just not true, right? Because as I'm reading him say, whatever it is better than what the fuck you had going on. I've had people in my life who love me and I love them be like, you're in a cult. You're being brainwashed. I'm like, maybe my brain was dirty. Ever think about that? Ever think that the way that I thought wasn't working and maybe this way when I'm like I got yelled at for writing a nightly. You know what I'm saying? I know, people are weird, man. And I made amends to someone one time and they're like, yeah, so I just also want to present to you that, like, maybe you've switched addictions and maybe you're addicted to the 12 steps. I'm like, I'm not overdosing a Walmart bathroom from heroin. Maybe I'm okay with that. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like trying to help people and be a decent human. That's a problem. You know what I mean? So, like, going back to that, it's like the people who are like rational are always going to say, listen, whatever you got going on, it's better than what the fuck it was. And that's the truth. So, like, remember that always. And that's just part of my mental obsession too. When I start like listening to that shit, I'm like, no, I don't think this is probably not good. Maybe I shouldn't go to these meetings and be with these people. Maybe it wasn't that bad. Right? That's just the fucking lie I tell myself. And when there are people in my life who think it weren't that bad, either A, they weren't that close to me, or B, they're just like I am. Mm. You know? And they miss their little using buddy or drinking buddy or whatever it is. Blah, blah, blah. He knows that they're real. While I lay in the hospital, the thought came that there were thousands of hopeless alcoholics who might be glad to have what had been so freely given to me. Perhaps I could help some of them. They, in turn, might work with others. My friend had emphasized the absolute necessity of demonstrating these principles in all of my affairs. Particularly, was it imperative to work with others as he had worked with me? What step is he referring to? 12. Why? What are the 2 parts of step 12? That's helping others, one part. What's the second part?
Spiritual, social awakening.
Mm-hmm.
As a result.
That's the result.
But what do I have to do in those two steps? That's the result, but what do I have to do?
Abandon
As a
yourself.
result of working, you set up a spiritual awakening and tried to help alcoholics anonymous.
Okay, so we have the result of working all 12 steps, and then we have part 1 of what this 12 step is helping other alcoholics. What else do I have to do in step 12?
Practice these principles.
Practice these principles in all my affairs. That's the part we fucking miss. Right? How often do we, as sponsors or watching other people sponsor, sit there and lace people up and it's like, you're fucking selfish, and then they go and they sit with their little clique at their fucking meeting and talk shit about the newcomers and be fucking mean to everybody, you know what I mean? And like they're not practicing the principles, right? And then we get fucked up when we're like doing all the things and checking off the boxes, but we're not applying the principles. It is emphasize the absolute necessity of demonstrating these principles in all of my affairs. That includes your server when you go out to eat. That includes the customer service rep who is trying to help you for Bank of America and you're pissed, right? That includes the person at fucking HEB that like, it's just not their fault that they're out of stock of your favorite protein shake. It's not their fucking fault. It includes the person who cut you off in traffic, right? It includes your boss, and we all struggle with that, right? We're all gonna get fucking mad. We're all gonna, like, I was just doing it. I'm like, I'm so angry at this fuck, right? And my immediate thing after that was I really need to write inventory because I'm very clear that it's not you people that are like making me act in these ways that are, in my opinion, like not acting in spiritual principles, right? So if I'm not acting in spiritual principles, I'm acting in character defect. Character defect is being dishonest. Principle would be honest, right? Defect, you're fucking mean, right? Principle, be kind. So simple, right? Drastic, because this is my whole life, right? This warped sense of loyalty that we were talking about last week and all these different ideas. Common sense becomes uncommon sense. Character defects become spiritual principles. I have to practice them. And when I fuck up, I have to go back and admit it. I have to go back and make it right, right? I didn't finish the paragraph. Faith without works was dead, he said. And how appallingly true for the alcoholic. For if an alcoholic failed to perfect and enlarge his spiritual life through work and self-sacrifice for others, he could not survive the certain trials and low spots ahead. If he did not work, he would surely drink again. And if he drank, he would surely die. Then faith would be dead indeed. With us, it's just like that. Listen, gang shit right there. Highlight that, underline that, whatever the fuck it is that you do to your book to make it important. Faith without works is dead. What does that mean?
It means if you just believe but don't put any action behind it, it's pointless.
100%. You know what I mean? All the time it's like, I think that one of the number one things that we get told is like, pray about it. You know what I mean? And pray about it, as you should. But then what else am I doing? What's the action I'm taking? I can sit there and pray. It's like, well, you have to pray for that person. Yeah, you gotta pray, and you gotta write inventory. And you gotta get other people's perspective. And then if you harmed somebody, you gotta go back and fucking fix it, right? Like, I gotta actually do things. And there's little things that people will suggest around this stuff. Like, the first thing that you should do in the morning when you wake up is, like, make your bed, right? I suck at that. I've never been good at that. I am messy, so messy. Cleanliness has never been my friend. And I absolutely see the merit in that, because the first thing I'm doing is an act that honestly for me is like against my basic instincts, which are, my basic instincts suck and cause me deep harm, you know what I mean? And it's an act of integrity. The same reason why when I pray, right, and it's not every time, right, because I'm talking all the time and going back and forth, but when I'm actually like doing a pointed prayer, I go against my basic instincts and I hit my knees. I think we were talking about this last week or the week before. And my reasoning, I would not hit my knees at first, but then I was convinced that I should, because I related it to religion, which again, for me, absolutely not I'm good, was my experience. And they're like, no, faith without works is dead. Prayer without action is fucking useless. What is the simplest act that you can do when you're praying? Is an act of humility. And for me, hitting my knees is humiliating, which is a fast track to humility. Like, maybe I don't know what's best. And there's always a more profound experience when I do it. Every fucking time, without fail. And I always, like, throw off my sponsees, because, like, they know, you know, most people I sponsor, I'm open about my spiritual beliefs and all that stuff, so they don't see it coming. I'm like, all right, time to do step 3. You ready to hit your knees? And they're like, what? I'm like, listen, we don't have to, but I highly suggest it, which is, like, a subtle demand. You know what I mean? And they're like, all right, I guess we're going to do it. And I always find it to be fucking helpful. If an alcoholic failed to perfect and enlarge his spiritual life through work and self-sacrifice for others, he could not survive these certain trials and low spots ahead. Couple different words in here. So a lot of times, one of the slogans we hear in the rooms is progress, not perfection, right? What's the actual line? Because I hate that one.
We claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection.
A in stereo. Yes, for spiritual progress, right? Because a lot of times what we can be guilty of is I fucking follow the person that cut me off in traffic home, and I curse out the HEB worker, and I don't tip my server, and I like write fuck you on the receipt. You know what I mean? I do all these things, and then I go home and I don't get loaded. And I'm like, well, progress, not perfection. That's a win for today. No, you're a fucking asshole. That's not progress. Like, you're being a
progress if you're progressing.
Yeah. Well, right. Like, you're not progressing. You're just being a dick. You're doing all the same shit. You're just sober. Good for you. Right? Where is the spiritual progress in that? There is none. Unless you go back and, like, you write an inventory and you fucking go and talk to somebody and make it right. Then we have progress, because we're going to fuck up. We're not going to be perfect. But where we find that this could be contradicting is that it says perfect and enlarge your spiritual life. And I want to be clear that perfect does not mean to make perfect. That is impossible. Perfect means to make anything as good as it possibly can be at any given moment. Right? And how good as something can be changes from time to time. Are you going to Google it? Do it, because so did I. That's where I got the definition. I'm excited. Actually, now I'm nervous. What if I remember it incorrectly and she proves me wrong?
Whitney will let you know.
Yes.
Come on, let's see what Google says. I have all these balloons right next to me. I didn't even realize it.
I was looking at it, they look kind of
somehow
cute.
it went to perfect.
Those are Cali balloons.
Oh. I love to see it. Perfect as a verb.
Not yet.
Having all the required or desirable elements, qualities, or characteristics as good as it's possible to be.
As good as it's possible to be. Right. Is it possible to be perfect at any given time? No. It's literally never possible to be perfect. And when we start to think, do I? That's cute. I mean, you're right.
True.
Yeah.
Well, no. That's the adjective. You said as a verb.
Perfect.
As
Yeah.
a verb
Mhm.
is to make something completely free from faults.
Well, fuck. Alright, well, we're gonna go fuck myself there. Is that the only definition?
It's the one I chose.
Because I might have chose a different one. It's just the truth.
It's the one I chose.
Is that the only one? Because I'll go fuck myself. That's fine. I believe you. Whatever. So I guess I read the adjective,
Okay.
right? I read the adjective, and 100%. So anyway, perfectly free from fault. That's fine. Whatever. Why am I sweating? Okay, so perfect and enlarge, right? To make it as big as it can be, and as good as it can be is what I'm sticking to. You gotta look at the 1939 version. Anyway, spiritual life through work and self-sacrifice for others. Not because someone says that you're doing really good, not because you're praying every fucking day and like not even meditating. There's no 10th step. You think that the 10th step is the 11th step. You know what I mean? Like all these different things, and we just like claim we go to a meeting, we power share, and like, oh, I helped so many people. You know what I mean? Like that ain't gonna do it, right? It's work and self-sacrifice. It's uncomfortable. It's not fucking easy, right? I cannot survive the certain trials and low spots ahead. Life is not going to stop because you're getting sober. I cannot stress that enough, right? Like, I absolutely thought for the longest time that the reason why I kept getting loaded is because when I was 13, my cousin Andy killed himself, right? When I was a kid, my, parents were alcoholics and everyone was fucked up. I was constantly moving. I had no stability. Like moving houses and towns my whole fucking life since I was little. That's why. It's because I had no structure. It's because everyone I love fucking dies, right? Fast forward to 2016. I think I was 6 months sober, still living in sober living, and one of my best friends fucking dies. And then a few months after that, another one of my best friends dies. And then fucking Leanna dies. And then my mom dies. And all these people die. And you know what? In the interim, like during all this is happening, I moved from Kerrville. And then I moved to Dallas. And then from Dallas, I moved to Richardson. And then from Richardson, I moved to Austin. And then from Austin, I moved back to fucking Kerrville. And I've been sober the whole fucking time. Right? So I have to get it out of my head that the reason why I'm getting loaded is because of these trials and low spots. If the reason why I'm getting loaded is trials and low spots, I will never, ever, ever stay sober. There is no fucking hope in that. So how do I survive the trials and low spots? And it gives me the answer. It's self-sacrifice and it's fucking work, right? I have to work on my spiritual life. I have to actually look at it and do the uncomfortable thing. None of this shit is comfortable. None of it. And whenever I see someone in early sobriety, especially like because I worked in treatment for a long time, and they come in and they're just like having the best time of their life, and they have zero fucking breakdown, and they have zero resistance, and they're just so grateful to be here, they never stay sober. Because that's not authentic. It's not fucking authentic. And I'll never forget the same person that I talked about last week that laced me up really hard, right? Same fucking human. This time I was sober, I went to Dallas, hung out with her to introduce a friend who was picking up a year sober. I had a few months. And I don't know why I confided in her. I didn't have this really close relationship with her at the time, but we're in the car and I just broke down and I was like, I don't understand what's happening. I am doing everything I'm supposed to do. I made 30 amends in one fucking weekend. Right? Everyone that comes into my path, I fucking tell them, I am so honest with my fucking sponsor. I'm doing all the things. I'm still not fucking happy. Right? And I don't want to get fucked up, but I know that, I might. I'm fucking scared. I am not well. And she looks at me, this bitch, and she says, well, Nick, congratulations. You're finally having an authentic experience. You might just stay sober this time. It's like, okay. Fucking Steph. Always Steph. I'm like, fuck you, dude. And I never fucking forgot that. Because that's the truth is did I have, were those spiritual experiences I talked about earlier authentic? Yes, 100%. But what happened with that is because I had those experiences, I had to keep up this front afterwards. I'm the chosen one. I'm the poster child for the 12 steps. I'm the one who made it. All my friends relapsed. I fucking made it. Right? I can't not be okay. Because if you think I'm not okay, you're going to think I'm lying and you don't trust me, then I am not God.
Wasn't it for lack of action?
Lack of fucking action, 100%, and not living up to spiritual principles. Because when I'm telling everyone that I'm doing really great all the time, I'm lying. And if I'm lying, I'm being dishonest. And I'm acting out in defect. You know what I mean? And just that unwillingness to be vulnerable and real in that. And that has been, this time getting sober, anytime the mental obsession or fleeting thought would come up, I just didn't tell anybody. I'm you can't think that because you're going to think I'm going to go, and then you're not going to trust what I say, you're not going to respect what I say. And that freaks me out. And I think I was about a year sober. I was, it was my job that I was managing, this transitional living. And one of the girls had her wisdom teeth taken out, and she got hydrocodone. And I'm an opiate addict, you know what I mean? And she had to keep it in a safe in my closet because I'm the house manager. Where else would it go? And I'll never fucking forget it. It's 2 a.m. and out of nowhere, suddenly the thought crosses my mind. I can take one of them and no one would ever know. It's really not a big deal. And literally, guys, I sat there and cried and just prayed and just over and over because there was no one to call. Yeah, everyone's asleep. Like, it was 2 or 3. I don't fucking know. And I was like, God, please just let me go to sleep. Please let me just wake up sober. Let me go to sleep. Let me wake up sober. Next thing you know, I wake up, right? And what I would have done in previous stints of sobriety, if you will, is just not tell anybody and be like, it's fine. No one has to know. It's my job. It has to be in my closet. Like, what else are we going to do? It's my responsibility. I can't let everyone down. And this time I went straight to my fucking Steel on Steel group and my sponsor and my boss. I was like, we got to get that shit out. I can't have it in there. I don't trust myself. It doesn't matter that I'm a year sober. It doesn't matter what my job is. I have to be honest. And thank fucking God. Because it's not anything for me. It's always been the dishonesty, and that stems to everything else. And of course, selfishness and dishonesty, they're all just together in fear, the evil and corroding thread, right? And if I do not perfect and enlarge, and if I do not do the work and self-sacrifice for others, and if I do not stay honest, if I do not live up to these spiritual principles and try to consistently, I will surely drink again. And if I drink, I will fucking die. I am very clear on that. You know? Y'all have anything on that before we keep going?
I mean, I can relate in some ways, but in some ways I don't. Like, so I was very much like the grateful person when I came here, and
Yeah.
I stayed sober, you
Yeah.
know, and it's like, but at the same time, I remember like having that shift of like, I'm not so grateful all the time. And then like people would be like, I would show up at things and like, not like high energy, not super grateful. And then be like, what's wrong with you? And it's like, I'm fine. Like, you know, but then, yeah, like, I can't be like up here all the time.
Right.
You know what I mean? But, I feel like, you know, the thing that came into my mind and my heart was like, I remember living so much of my life, like, where things were like in disharmony, like when I would tell myself I do one thing and then I do like the other thing, and like how I'm just crazy, and that's like the spiritual malady. It's like,
Yeah.
you know, and I agree with you about like being open and being honest when you are having feelings like
Yeah.
that, you know. And that's how you
100%.
get through it, yeah.
No, I agree. And I want to be clear, it's not like if you're happy and grateful, you're not going to stay sober.
Yeah.
I think that that's an important,
But
like,
if you're
distinction.
trying to do that all the time,
Right, and like things
I
come up and you
understand.
you
Yeah.
refuse to look at it.
Yeah.
Right, like that's what
Then
I'm
it's
talking about.
inauthentic, which
Yeah.
is
Which is dishonest.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that this time around, I would say that the quality of my sobriety is unlike anything that I thought was possible. And what's the key thing that I think is different is I've been more vulnerable than at times I think is even necessary. But having said that, in previous stints of sobriety, I was only as vulnerable as I thought was necessary. And we know how that turned out. So I guess I'll just keep doing what I'm doing.
That's a good point. Yeah.
100%, and there's definitely an evolution. Like I always say, the disease is progressive and fatal, so recovery has to be progressive and vital. You know what I mean? So it's gonna look different. Like gratitude is the opposite of anything I ever had. I was so fucking ungrateful for everything, and I needed that shift. I had to have some fucking gratitude, and I couldn't just say it. I had to like act it. And so for me, this time getting sober, like the way that I showed gratitude was like showing up to things I didn't want to, telling people things I didn't want to, sharing like all this different shit. Even though I didn't feel grateful, I would act it until I actually felt it, right? And then on the flip side of it is like some people are just like on the fucking pink cloud, and then they didn't want to be vulnerable, but then they started doing the vulnerable things, showing up to meetings and not living in this, I gotta be, and creating a stage character out of it, right? And I fully believe that every meeting should be a fucking pep rally, and we should go in there as women who have recovered and have had experience and go in there and talk about the good shit. And I get to do that there's a balance. I get to be authentic. I don't have to go in there and be a fucking mascot 24/7 and put that on myself. And when I do feel mascotty, then fucking do it.
Yeah.
We love that. Go in there, boppy. You know what I mean? Almost like fucking Eeyore all the time, you know? But when you feel like Eeyore, just fucking be Eeyore. It's okay. Like, I think
That's
that...
very helpful to, like, especially newcomers. Like, you know, life is much better sober, but it's not perfect. It's not easy.
Right.
Like, we still struggle with the same things that we did when we were drinking or doing drugs, but there's a different way to handle it. There's
Right.
a different way through it. And, you know, like you were saying earlier, like, you know, your friend died and your mom and all these things, and you thought that's why you got loaded. Like, I think I'm a perfect example of that. I lost my dad young. So did my sister. She's ignore me. I'm not.
Right.
You know, we went through the same trauma, the same hurt, the same grief. She's fine.
Right.
I'm in AA meetings. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
100%. 100 fucking percent. And over smashing that delusion that the
She's in
reason...
counseling.
Right.
She's not totally fine,
Like a normal
but
human.
She's a normie.
Right.
You know?
Right. It's not
She
fucking
had her
out
glass
there
of wine,
doing
but
math
not anymore.
thing.
You know, whatever.
Right.
Weirdo. But, you know, I can.
Isn't that crazy how that works? You know, and like I think that one of the biggest disservices that we get is people telling us that we're addicts and alcoholics because of these events.
Yeah.
Can it progress it? Sure.
Absolutely.
Right? Can it be a reason why I started? Absolutely. But I have a lot of friends who got high with me because they were sad boy, sad girl, you know what I mean?
But
And
they
they just stopped. Given sufficient reason, they fucking stopped. I ran from New York to Texas trying to fucking stop. I detoxed cold turkey from Long Island to the Rio Grande Valley, 36-hour drive, and a year later got arrested for a felony for possession of heroin. It doesn't matter,
No.
right? Like
She has
people,
kids now. She rarely drinks. I
right?
have kids. CPS is cold.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
right.
Like,
And it's not because you're worse than her.
no.
You have a different fucking brain.
I'm an alcoholic.
Exactly. Oh, just maybe nuts. Crazy.
I want to chime in real quick.
Please do.
So I feel like too, like, and then you know, experiencing death and sobriety and all these things, like life happens, you know. And I think the most authentic thing I can say right now is that I have a hard time being authentic.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like that mascot thing comes in where it's like when I go to a meeting, it's like I only want to share if I like have a solution. But there's so many times I go to meetings where I'm like going through stuff and I'm like, you're just gonna sit here and listen until you figure this out.
God's gonna fix it through this person. Yeah.
And then I'll move through something for like, it'll take like months and then I finally have like some good thing to say, so I'll say something or whatever. And it's like, I definitely can relate to like.
And so here's the
This
thing,
stuff.
right? Like I love that you just said that. First of all, it's so vulnerable to admit that it's so hard to be authentic. And I've struggled with that so much. And then that the fucking I'm a fraud thing comes in. It's just like, oh God, whatever. And I don't believe that meetings should be used as a process group. What's the fucking balance? So
Yeah.
the best example that I can think of from my life is when I've been thinking about it a lot. Grief is a weird thing, and that's not what this group is about. But Leanna, right, was like my human since I was 14. I've lost so many people, but she just honestly overshadows all of them. And when she died, right, I mean, I have never been taken out like that. I always swore if she died, I died. Like, that was it. That was my exception. That was my condition, right? And what's interesting is when she died, like, thank God I had built the foundation that I had built up until that point and, like, was continuing to do the work, because I was on my knees screaming. And the idea of getting loaded did not even come to my mind. It wasn't like I was fighting to stay sober and like, I can't, oh God, I have to. It did not even come up, right? So my point in that is that my sponsor she gave me like 2 days, right? And she's like, we're going to a meeting. I'm like, no, I'm not going to be around people. I'm not doing it, right? But what ended up happening is that in that first week that she died, I listened to my sponsee's fifth step. I showed up to my H&I that I went to every fucking week. And I went to that fucking meeting with my sponsor, right? Hardest shit I've ever done in my life. And when I went to that meeting, unfortunately, it wasn't just like a normal meeting. We were going in a circle. Everyone's going to share. And I'm like, this isn't fucking real. I got my hood up. I'm like, this is fucking stupid. I don't want to say. I'm gonna break. I can't even say hi, you know. And it finally gets to me, and because I just kept in my head what I usually do. God, use your words, use my voice, right? Just over and over. And I said, hi, something along the lines of like, hi, my name's Nikki Millennium, recovered drug addict, alcoholic, whatever. A couple days ago, my best friend was killed, and I'm absolutely distraught. I'm going through the hardest time that I've ever had in my entire life. And because of this program and taking the suggestions that have been laid out for me, I do not even have any desire to get loaded. Thank you, that's all I got. That is the solution, and that is being vulnerable, and that is being authentic, right? I'm not going to show and it's like, here's all the really hard shit, and because of this, I don't have to show up the way that I used to. I think that's the coolest thing that we can give to the newcomer. You know what I mean? And allowing other people, because like, again, what's the foundation stone of our recovery? It says in the book.
Isn't it keystone?
Foundation stone. We have several stones.
Foundation is the third step, right?
Mm-mm.
No, for
No.
Say it again.
Fuck.
The foundation stone of our recovery is
Helping others.
Yeah, it's helping others.
Oh.
Yeah.
We're all like,
Yeah, we have
So
like
many
a whole.
stones.
We have the whole archway. We got the keystone.
that's what I was just gonna say, the archery, what?
Yeah, we got the cornerstone is step 2, keystone step 3, foundation stone is step 12, helping others, right? So I have, when it comes to being authentic and being vulnerable and allowing others to help me, is that if I'm in a room full of you people who are my people, right? Y'all are all fucking drunks and druggies like I am. You have a foundation stone to your recovery that's helping others. How dare I
Right.
rob you of the experience of helping me?
No, yeah, exactly. Sorry to jump
Come
in,
on,
but
please.
yeah, it's always been really, really difficult for me to accept help or ask for it or
Yep.
know that I need help. There's a lot of reasons for that. A lot of it's like pride based. And then I had like a revelation or whatever. It's like when I am dishonest ultimately and like don't ask for help when I really need it, I'm literally depriving somebody else of service work.
Right.
Facts.
And that's like rude. I'm like,
Yeah, I get to help you, but you can't help me.
right?
You know
yeah,
what I mean?
Yeah, gatekeeping service work.
Yeah. Literally. 100%. And it's like this idea that like I'm a burden. It's all,
Right.
of course I do, right? When I say how dare I say that with all of the compassion for us and for me. And it's like, of course I think that way, right? Because the truth is like when other people came to me for help, it did feel like a fucking burden. Like, let's be honest, you know what I mean? When I'm in that selfishness, someone's like, oh, I'm like, oh God, shut up, just drink. You know what I mean? Like, I couldn't deal with that. So how did I help my friends back then? I gave them drugs. I got fucked up with them. Just shut up, you know, or then I'd get fucked up and now we can all cry. You know, we'll just have a whole talk session. It'll be so good, not make any kind of sense and not remember any of that. Right? And now it's like this authentic like connection and intimacy, and it's fucking hard. And when I start to do the things, I get to see how it actually works. I get to see the benefits. This whole program is a leap of faith, and then it starts to be that I can rely on my experience, right? It's not always a leap of faith of like I just have to trust everyone, which is so hard. It's not, I get to trust my experience up until this point. It's benefited me. Why would I not do it now? Still stubborn. It's like I don't want to do it again, even though every single time I've written inventory and read inventory and showed up to the meeting and helped the sponsee and called my sponsor, every single time it's helped. I don't want to do it now, you know, because I'm just fucking stubborn, right? But I also have that experience of like I know it fucking works. We are gonna finish this. We're gonna finish this chapter. It's gonna happen. Ready? Okay. Go. So. My wife and I abandoned ourselves with enthusiasm to the idea of helping other alcoholics to a solution of their problems. It was fortunate for my old business associates remained skeptical for a year and a half, during which I found little work. I was not too well at the time and was plagued by waves of self-pity and resentment. This sometimes nearly drove me back to drink, but I soon found that when other measures failed, work with another alcoholic would save the day. Real quick, super important. So old business associates remained skeptical for a year and a half, during which I found little work. He's fucking broke as shit. I was waived by I was plagued by waves of self-pity and resentment. This sometimes drove me back to drink. So I want to be really clear. It wasn't him being broke and not having a job that almost drove him back to drink. It was the waves of self-pity and resentment. That's what takes us out. That's the shit that fucks us up. It's not you guys, it's me. Thank God. How fucking empowering. Because if you're the reason why I'm getting fucked up, I'm fucked. You're always going to disappoint me. You're a fucking human. You're going to do something that hurts me. Thank God you're not the thing that controls me anymore. You're not my fucking puppet master, right? This sometimes blah, blah, blah. Work with other alcoholic would save the day, 100%. And that's why it's like, go pray, go help somebody. Like, that's a good sponsorship. Like, who have you called today? Well, the best thing I was ever told in this deal was like, yeah, call someone, vent, talk about yourself 100%. That's important. But who have you called just to say, hey, is there any way that I can help you? You know what I mean? Like, hit people up and ask how you can be of service. Because it's crazy what can happen from that sometimes. Many times I have gone to my old hospital in despair. On talking to a man there, I would be amazingly lifted up and set on my feet. It is a design for living that works in rough going. Me going to that H&I, because that's what he's talking about, right? He's going to where he got sober to help people. This is where H&Is were born. I go to treatment centers, I go to jails, I go to detoxes, I meet with somebody who's in the fucking throes of addiction. I get to talk to them, and in being helpful, I feel connected, right? So when Lee died, I went to that H&I, right? And I talked to them, and it was a state-funded place where they don't get the message. They get handed 2 or 3 books, and they're like, pick a program, find a sponsor, figure it out, write a triggers list, figure out all the external things that make you get high. You know what I mean? And like, good luck, right? So we'd go in and like just talk about, I'd walk in and be like, triggers don't exist. Let's fight about it. And they're like, what the fuck? And they would hate it in the first 5 minutes, and then they're in it. And nothing... it was my favorite place to be every fucking week. It was a pain in the ass. I had to drive through fucking traffic downtown Dallas every fucking week during rush hour. I hated it. And every fucking time I went there, I was so glad that I did. It was the fucking best, right? That's the shit that makes it a design for living that works in rough going. So when I'm having a really bad day, should I skip the H&I? No. Right? Because it's like, yeah, self-care, take care of yourself. And it's not like you have to go to a fucking meeting every day. We don't have, like, we get to have freedom now. I didn't get sober to have to be at this place every fucking day at 7 p.m. or I'm gonna die. You know what that's silly, right? And do I have this commitment that's me showing up for other humans? I gotta show up to it. And it's going to make me feel better.
Isn't helping others self-care if it says, like, you know, working with another alcoholic is the only thing that will save you?
100%. 100%. And especially in those situations where it's all newcomers. You know what I mean? A lot of times, like, the whole meeting makers make it. It's like, the reason, why do we go to meetings at fucking 20 years sober?
Or, like, how do you perfect and enlarge your spiritual life?
Right. How do you do it?
Through work and self-sacrifice. That's not always something you want to do.
Right. I think a lot of times that idea
That's
of
what
self-care,
self-care
exactly, it gets
That's what
fucking
sacrifices, something you don't want to do, yet you do it.
100%. 100%. I do believe that there's a balance in, like, just sitting this one out sometimes, you know what I mean? And, like, turning everything off and just, like, being with you and the universe or God or whatever. And to use that as an excuse consistently to not show up for others, that's the opposite of self-care. Now we're just in this weird fucking place, you know what I mean? We're gonna do it. We commenced to make many fast friends, and a fellowship has grown up among us, of which it is a wonderful thing to feel a part. The joy of living we really have, even under pressure and difficulty. I've seen hundreds of families set their feet in the path that really goes somewhere. Have seen the most impossible domestic situations righted, feuds and bitterness of all sorts wiped out. I've seen men come out of asylums and resume a vital place in the lives of their families and communities. Business and professional men have regained their standing. There is scarcely any form of trouble and misery which has not been overcome among us. in one western city and its environs, there are 1,000 of us and our families. In the first edition, it read 80. And that fucking quick. We meet frequently so that newcomers may find the fellowship they seek. At these informal gatherings, one may often see from 50 to 200 persons. We are growing in numbers and power. I think it kind of ties into what we were talking about earlier. Like, I don't believe. I think that we do a big disservice when we use 12-step meetings of any fellowship as a process group. A, we're not therapists. B, even if you are a therapist, that's not your fucking job, that's not your group, stop trying to lead it. You know what I mean? We get weird around that stuff. So we like do this thing where we're trying to help each other process through all these emotions, when the reason why we have these specific meetings for alcoholism and drug addiction is to help us get over alcoholism and drug addiction. If I'm a good sponsor and you come to me with all this trauma, right? Like legit trauma. A, I'm going to have you write inventory. B, I'm like, why haven't you found a therapist yet? I've given you 5 numbers. You know what I mean? I can't do EMDR with you. I can't walk you through inner child work. That's not my job. I'm not qualified to do that. We're going to help you get rid of the mental obsession. That's what we're doing here, right? So meetings are a place where newcomers come and they listen, you know, not letting a newcomer talk, I'm not for that. I want to know what's going on so that we know how to help you better. That you're the one that's supposed to be bringing your issues. We're the ones that's supposed to be bringing the solution, right? And even our problems with the solution. You know what I'm saying? Like, we got to be there to explain what this is and how many fucking meetings exist that this book has never opened. And the meeting is about gratitude. Gratitude doesn't fucking keep me sober. Acceptance doesn't fucking keep me sober. Those are important, but those are only 2 spiritual principles out of all of them that I have to be applying to all of my affairs, right? An alcoholic in his cups, or a drunk alcoholic, is an unlovely creature. Our struggles with them are variously strenuous and comic and tragic. One poor chap committed suicide in my home. He could not, or would not, see our way of life. There is, however, a vast amount of fun about it all. I suppose some would be shocked at our seeming worldliness and levity, but just underneath there is a deadly earnestness. Faith has to work 24 hours a day in and through us, or we perish. Most of us feel we need look no further for utopia. We have it with us right here and now. Each day my friend's simple talk in her kitchen multiplies itself in a widening circle of peace on earth and goodwill to men. Bill W., co-founder, died January 24th, 1971. What I always think is cool when we're doing like big book studies like this and talking about what the actual, because now we're going to get into the whole deal, right? And talking about what the actual 12 steps are, what that actually looks like. You know what I mean? We get to spread this information, right? Like, some of y'all are going to move to different states. Some of y'all in a couple years we'll never see again. It's just the truth. You're going to stay sober is the hope. I'm talking about the positive part. Don't make that face. We'll never see again because you're sober and you're elsewhere, and you left Kerrville and now you're in Wisconsin, or, you know, wherever the fuck you go. I don't fucking know, right? And you go to these meetings and all the meetings are just like people telling newcomers that they're not ready to do the steps, and you have to wait at least 3 months before you can even start step 1, and you're on step 1 for a month, which, what are you doing on step 1 for, like, literally what are you doing? I don't understand, right? And then, like, you're on your 4th step and you have to be on it for a year. Like, what is happening? Like, this is real shit that people do, right? And a lot of those people are hard drinkers, or, you know, whatever the case may be, and they're talking to this real deal little dope fiend and drunk, and they keep getting loaded, and they keep coming back to these meetings and picking up these fucking 24-hour shifts, and then these people are telling them that they don't want it enough because they're not giving them the solution. So it has nothing to do. If I could stay sober because of necessity or desire, then why am I fucking here with you?
Me and Jerry went to a meeting in Florida, and there was no hope in that room.
It was that way. It was. And I almost thought there was no hope. Well, like, you know, relocating back to Florida eventually. But then I went to another few meetings, and then I found one good one. I found one good one.
I'm just saying they're out there.
Yeah, they're out there.
They're at the, dude, I went home to New York and I went to a meeting and I was just like, half of the shares were, I'm X amount of years sober and I have to fight every day to stay sober.
I've never actually worked the steps.
I've never worked the steps. I've been on step 4 for 4 years. I'm
My
like,
sponsor told me to just write some stuff down during the commercials for my 4-step. From the podium, this man said that.
from the podium.
Yeah.
He says this.
Yeah.
And that's it. I'm
Florida's
not
crazy.
trying to like trash people for saying that stuff because it's our fault. It's our fucking fault. You know what I mean? Like we do this thing. I don't know where it starts. It usually starts from hard drinkers who go to meetings and they drink the shitty coffee and they like the people because we're likable and we're funny, right? We have this sense of levity, right? But this sense of earnestness, and they never have to do the steps. And they decide they're going to sponsor people, right? And they're like, oh, you don't have to do that. And they make shit up. And they're well-meaning. They're not trying to kill people, but that's the fucking result. Right? And then people who are actually trying to get help never fucking get it because they're going to these meetings completely made up. They have nothing to do with fucking anything.
Yeah.
They're reading I'm not going to say specific books, but they're reading out of these fucking books that have literally nothing to do with anything. And these one fucking word topics, and they walk in there hopeless with absolutely no solution and no clarity of why they're doing what they're doing, and they think that they're just bad people. I also think it's important that even like at the meetings that are sharing the solution, a lot of times we do this thing where everyone's just not willing. If they don't get it, they're just not fucking willing. If you can, but it says would not or could not throughout the whole fucking book. Some people can't, right? How do I show up for people and meet them where they're at authentically and not shame people because they are having a legitimately hard time grasping this whole fucking concept? Because that drives more people out of the rooms than the shitty fucking meeting in Florida or New York. Is us shaming people for not getting it the first time or the second time or like we do. When how many people do we know that have been in the rooms for a while, that have been doing this for fucking 5-10 years and finally they got it because they were welcomed back? What happens if they're not welcomed back? You know what I mean?
That happened to me. Well, like I didn't want it. I wasn't willing, and then I went out for 3 more years, and I wanted it
Pretty bad.
because my health was just shit, and I didn't feel good, and I felt good for a minute. I was like, oh, I can feel good again. And now I'm still here,
Yeah.
honestly.
No, 100%. And we have to make that environment of like welcoming you back, welcoming everyone back. I always say, I'm like, yeah, the first time I got sober was 2011. My sobriety date is 2016. You know what I mean? Some people have a much larger gap between that, like their first time walking in and actually fucking staying, but like us sitting in this room, we get to like those shit. I always say, like, when you do move and you find those shitty meetings, please go to those shitty meetings. Go to them. Bring a big book.
Make it better.
Make it better. Do your part. You might not be able to change anything. They're stuck in their ways, but a newcomer's going to walk in there one day and you're sitting there with your book and they're talking about acceptance as the answer to all my problems today, and you don't have to like fucking sniper them. You get to like relate it back to the book and like and qualify yourself, actually explain what the mental obsession is, explain what the physiology is, explain what the 12 steps are, and they're gonna be like, what? I've never heard of such a thing. Right? In all my years of coming in and out of these rooms, never in all my days have I heard I have to do the 12 steps quickly? Fast? What? Who are you? What do you have? I want to know. And boom, now you get to be of maximum service. Don't make it your home group, maybe, but like, go. Anyway, anyone else have anything? Okay. That's all I got.
Thanks, Nikki.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Nikki.
Love you guys.
Hey
guys.
No. If Jerry comes by, I'll be so embarrassed. Hola, soy Dora. Okay, redo it. Okay, cut. Oh. You're not like intimidating to me, but that's just fucking embarrassing. My sponsor hears me fucking talking like Dora.
Like Dora? What?
Don't be mean to me. Okay, so hola, soy Dora. Welcome to Nikki's Big Book Study, where we preach and share the message of the 12 steps. Dude, if y'all ever want to see a animated Dora, P-O